Hello, welcome to Young Martin's Reels, and today we're going to be working on this Garcia Mitchell 400, and this will be the first time that I've worked on a 400. I mean, I've already had this apart a little bit. When I got this reel, this one came from my friend Robert, and when I first got this reel, the handle would wind to just about right here and stop, and then that was it. That's all it would do. You could backtrack it, but it won't do that anymore, and I'll explain to you what's going on with it. Decided it was time to give this one a good work over and see what we can find with it. Alright, the first thing we're going to do is take the rotor off, take the spool off, and then we're going to take the handle off. And I'll be honest with you, I have been inside this reel already because I did fix it so that it will now wind. But what I found when I got inside it was that there were chunks of metal inside that were jammed into the gears. And I'll show you where that took place and what I did to fix it. Alright, what I found when I opened it up was that in between, inside here, along this edge right here, there were pieces of metal jammed into the gear teeth, as well as here. They were jammed in along here. And I spent about an hour with a safety pin digging those little chunks of metal out. And I didn't understand at first where they had come from. But with a little further inspection and analysis, what I found was that this post right here, right now it's just a square post. Well, originally it's supposed to have a cam assembly on there that's supposed to move the anti-reverse gear over and out of the way. Well, that cam has broken off. The only thing that's left there is just a square hole or square peg, which doesn't do a thing for the anti-reverse dog anymore. So you have a choice at this point. We can either A, replace this entire assembly with a new one because that piece is broken. B, we can leave it so that it's in anti-reverse all the time. Or C, we can remove the anti-reverse gear or dog and operate it that way all the time so that it's never locking. I would prefer that it's always in anti-reverse. One day I may break down and buy a new side cover that has the cam in it, but until then we're going to live with it like it is. So we're going to go ahead and take this gear off. This is our main gear. Take that out, and all this has gotten pretty grimy because the reel is actually pretty nasty inside. And I imagine that if I went through, yep, there's another piece right there. Little pieces of metal inside. But what we're going to do is we're going to take this apart, open this reel up, take everything out of it, scrub it down, and put it back together. Okay, once we've got the majority of the the chunks of grease out, we can go ahead and finish taking it apart. Okay, we went off camera for a few seconds because these screws were really tight, and I decided to go get a nut driver. This is a 5mm nut driver. And since those screws are so delicate, I decided we didn't want to take a chance on snapping off the screw head or stripping it out. Alright, once we've got those two screws out, this base plate here will lift up and off. And that's going to gain us access to everything else in here. With that out, we can now slide out the main axle assembly, and we're ready to take the rotor apart. It's 13mm or 1/2 inch. Okay, at this point you want to start watching for shims. Okay, as we pull this rotor up and off, lift it out, lift out the plate. This is our ramp plate. Has the ramp built into it right here. It trips the arm for the bale. Okay, let's look underneath the plate. There's no shim there, but there is a shim sitting on top of the rotor. Make sure there's no extras. Yep, there's two more shims. Okay, so we got a total of 4 shims on there. All right, no more. All right, when you take this out, there's also a shim right here. Let's see if I can point it out to you. There's a small shim right there. If you don't need to take it out, don't take it out. Leave it alone. All right, that's got all that out. Now what we're going to be doing is cleaning all this. And we're actually going to go as far as to take this bale apart because it's got grit underneath it. I could normally you can lubricate it and it'll work fine. But in this instance, it's flipping okay, but you can feel that it's gritty. Sand in there is just going to cause it to wear, and we want to take care of it. This is a reel that's 50-some years old, and there's no sense in not taking care of it if we can help it. All right, now let's get back to this gear. What I found, you can see the shiny spots on this gear probably. I think you can anyway, if I turn it just the right way. That's where all those chunks of metal were. And in some cases they were kind of hard on the gears. But I did find that if I cleaned them up real good, look, there's another piece of metal right there. So I've got to get all this components out of this. All the grease and all the little pieces out, because those will continue to chew up on the gears and make it so it doesn't operate properly. Let's finish taking this apart. Well, we'll save the rotor for last. In the meantime, we're going to take it apart. Let's go ahead and take it apart. That way you can see everything taken off. There's not a shim there. The only shim is at the bottom right there. Let's go ahead and remove the bale assembly. Now there's a spring underneath here, and I'm going to teach you how to reset that. Normally, when you take this thing apart, it's not necessary to take this bale wire off, but because there's sand and grit down inside here, and because I want to show you how it's done, we're going to go ahead today and take it off. Normally, I recommend you just give it a few shots of oil and leave it alone. Okay, screws out, lift out on the bale wire, and there's your spring. And yes, there's chunks of grit up inside here that we're going to have to clean out. Now, if you can't get your cotton swab to go down in there cleanly to get everything out, go ahead and peel some of the cotton off. Make it a smaller cotton swab so that it can fit the groove better. All right. Now we've got the grit out. We'll be able to fix that up nice. We're also going to take out the latch spring here, because it's gritty also. Everything in this reel is very gritty. I don't know what caused that original anti-reverse pawl to snap off, but everything inside this reel is gritty. All right, see how the spring is installed? Okay, it just hooks behind it right here. Now we're going to slide this down and pull it out. All right. I know you can't see me shake my head, but trust me, I'm shaking my head because this is really bad. All right. We are at the point now where we're ready to start scrubbing up our parts. So we are going to go silent now. while I scrub all the parts. When we come back from silent, we'll be putting all nice clean parts back together and showing you how nicely this reel will operate. Alright, with all the parts clean now, we're ready to start assembly. The first thing we're going to do is put this oscillating plate back on. It goes here in the bottom, lays flat in there like that. And then there's your 2 screws that we took out that hold it in place. Now I took them out with a nut driver, but I don't want them that tight again. So I'm going to put them back in with a screwdriver. Get the first one started and then come back, start the second one, then you can tighten them both down. And they just need to be gently snug. They don't need to be cranked on real hard. The next thing we're going to do is install the Bale wire on your rotor. You're going to need the rotor, the Bale spring, and the 2 screws. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this Bale spring right here. It's got two bends on it. One points out to the side and one points straight up. I don't know how well you can see that. Okay, this one comes straight out and this one points straight up. Okay, you're going to take the one that points straight out, rotate it around, and slip it into this slot right here. Okay, there's the wire for the spring sticking out through this slot. Now you'll take your Bale wire, and we're going to take it and insert that little post into this little hole. If you look, there's a very tiny hole right there. If you look on this side, it's right beside this post. So we're going to install it right beside that post. But leave it hanging upside down like this. Normally the bale's going to sit either this way, or when it's flipped open it's going to be this way. But in this instance we're going to have it all the way down towards the bottom. That way the spring is unsprung. You can fit that little tab of the spring into the hole. Put it into the hole. Line up the screw hole and put your screw in. Make sure the wire is still in the hole. Go ahead and screw it down if you want a little bit. Let's go to the other side now. And let's put the other wire screw in. Turn it this way so you can see what I'm doing. Alright, now you've got a bale that wants to play, but it's not ready just yet. Okay, so bring it further up, and let's go ahead and screw the screw back in the rest of the way. Okay? Now, at this point, you definitely want to put some reel oil on these components so that this floats freely. Alright, now we're ready to go back and install the Bale release. That's this guy right here. It's going to install, see this tab right here? Well, this tab is going to face down because this spring is going to fit on the other side of it. Okay, so bring it down, slide the nose of it down through the hole, and line up the screw hole. It's like this. Once you've done that, go ahead. I'm trying to turn this so that you can see it. Once you've done that, you're ready to install the screw. And if you need just a dab of grease on the screw, you can do that. Put just a dab on the head of the screw so the screwdriver will hold it. Slip it down into place, line it up on your screw hole. That screw's not going to hold it. Let's move to this screwdriver. There. Helps to get the right size screwdriver for the job. Then again, maybe it doesn't. Okay, before I screw it in all the way, I want to show you where it is, what I'm dealing with. We're screwing this screw in. This is in this configuration. Okay. Now if you want, you can pull this on up and lock it into place, like so, and go ahead and tighten down your screw. Now, what you're going to see this spring is still not engaged. So you have to take this spring now and lift it out here, bring it across and take it to the other side, right there, so it's engaged on that tab on the underside. Now with that engaged, keep your fingers out of the way. There you go. There's your Bale. There's your release for the Bale. All right. In a little bit, we'll go ahead and install that, and you'll see how it works. Next thing that's going to go in here, well, next thing we're going to do, remember the shims that I told you were down inside here? Well, this one had two. Here they are. See how tiny they are? Little bitty guys. Let's go ahead and install those now on this shaft and get them slid down so that they don't get forgotten or lost. Okay, they're in. At that point, it's time to go ahead and install grease on the lower gear on the rotor. And let's put it on the shaft. Slide the rotor on. Once it's on, make sure that it rotates smoothly. A little drag is okay. Grease is going to cause some drag, but it should do it smoothly. Now is where we come back with the shims. This one has 3 brass shims, brass or bronze. They go right here, and then it's got a phenolic block or phenolic washer. That phenolic washer is going to go here, and by doing that, it'll help stop corrosion on this plate. Next, the plate goes in. Notice that the plate is keyed. See the keyway on it? Well, there's a slot in the shaft that keyway goes into. All the way. Now you're ready to install your nut. Tighten the nut down. Now if everything is correct up to this point, when you flip the bale over and you rotate this, it should flip the bale back when it hits the ramp. It also should not be hitting the ramp inside. If you're spinning around like this and every time this comes around here, if every time it comes around it nicks right there and says chick chick, that's going to drive you crazy. So if that is the case, you might need to adjust this ramp right here so that it doesn't hit. Sometimes you can take and rotate it just a little bit sideways, push it up, push it down. It really should be level. If it's level and it's not hitting, then that's the way it's supposed to be. All right, but you may have to adjust that ramp slightly to get it to not hit. With that done, we're going to go back and install the axle shaft. This is an oscillating axle shaft. I'm going to use oil on it because it will make it ride smoother than the grease. You slide it down in, see how it's got that hole that's sticking up? Well, that's where this plate comes in. Alright, this is our oscillating plate. We'll go ahead and grease the bottom side of the oscillating plate because it has to slide against the other plate. Alright, slip it in and make sure that this post right here fits into that hole on the axle shaft. Now, if you've done it right, when you slide the axle shaft up and down, the oscillating plate will move with it. Next part to go in is going to be the gear with the 3 teeth on the bottom. This is your oscillating gear. When I grease it up, you want to put grease on the gear teeth. And make sure to get grease on the bottom and the top. Now, here's the thing when you go to install this. For me, the best way to do it is set the gear here, right in the middle, take the center one and install it on there, and then to see if I've got it right, I go ahead and rotate the gear. If I can rotate the gear all the way around and the shaft oscillates up and down, then I know I've got it in there right. Okay, that's enough for that part for now. We're going to move over to the side plate. This is where our main gear is. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, there's a little teeny tiny washer right here. I've left it on there the whole time. Make sure that you've got that washer. It's a shim that spaces and sets this gear in the correct configuration to properly mesh to this gear. Okay, so make sure that little washer is installed on there. Come back, we're going to install the main gear and grease it up. With grease on the gear, we're going to come back, we're going to add oil to the shaft because it's a rotating assembly and it has to rotate inside here. If you put grease on it, it'll tend to drag. So go ahead and put the oil on there. With that done, we're ready to reinstall the pinion gear. Grease it. Install it on the end here, right over top of that little washer. Now, this is where this anti-reverse dog goes in. It fits right here on this post. There's several different configurations of the anti-reverse dog on the different reels. As they change the models, they change how this configuration. So just because one model has it one way doesn't mean they're all going to look that way. That reverse dog is in several different configurations between the 300, the 400, even within models, same models of the same one. But now this lever is supposed to deactivate that, but it's missing the cam off of it, and that's why it doesn't. That cam is what was chewed up and jammed into all these gears. Now we move to this gear. Then install it in here. Note that the small gear stands up high. The large gear goes on the bottom side and goes up against this gear. Okay, everything should move freely together. With that done, we are ready to reinstall the side case back onto the body. And I think we need to add some more grease to this pinion gear. Alright, pinion gear is greased, the rotor gear looks good, remesh them back together, and it's time to put the screws in. Okay, that's got the side plate on now. And let's install the handle. And now we've got to deal with what we were concerned about. Is there any chunking or anything like that? And there is not. It's as smooth as can be. All right. Does the bale operate properly? Yes, it does. All right, that brings us down to just the spool with the drag washer. Let's take it apart. Push the bottom end out. We're going to clean that grease up out of there. We're going to take out the drag washer pressure plate and the drag washer. And we're going to clean these parts. Okay, here's your clicker wire for your drag announcer. Make sure it clicks. In case you didn't see that, let me pop it back out again. Might have had it off camera. This is your drag wire. It's on the bottom of the spool. Okay, it fits in here. There you go. It fits into these teeth right here. That's your clicker. No need to lubricate that. This is your drag washer. I'm going to lubricate it with drag washer grease. Next comes your pressure assembly. And your knob. Alright, spool should snap well. Let's wipe off the inside of the spool. Since I got grease and oil and everything else in there. Get it all off. Snap it in place. There's your drag. Loosen it up a little bit. There we go. Got a good drag. There we have the Mitchell 400, and I may replace this side cover one day so that it is able to disengage the anti-reverse, but it works beautifully just the way it is, and I usually use the anti-reverse engaged, so that'll do it. If you like what you see, please hit the like button. If you don't, hit the dislike button, and if you want to see more videos and you haven't previously done so, you might want to subscribe. Anyway, this is Rick Stivers with YoungMartin'sReels, signing out.